Good evening, everyone. We are about to begin the webinar today. Dr. Madhumati ma'am. Ma'am, may I please hand over to you?
Yeah, Shivana.
Yes,
Good,
ma'am.
a very good evening to everyone. I'm really very happy to be the moderator for today's session. I think it's a very proud moment for the Alumni Association of Srimati VHT Central Institute of Home Science, because this is the first international webinar in our webinar series. So I think it's a very special one. And I would like to really thank Dr. Ratna, our dynamic president, who has been a driving force behind this endeavor of having very, meaningful topics for our webinar. And I think most of the topics that we have chosen as a theme have been very community, and they have been really, so thought provoking, and also something that needs some social action. So, in this webinar, we are really very fortunate to have Ms. Gauri N. Rao, who has been the former director of Community Nutrition Program in California. She is our illustrious alumnus, who has been serving in the United States for many years. We are really fortunate to have you with us today, ma'am. And we are looking forward to hearing us your. We would really like to hand it over to Ms. Gauri Rao as soon as possible, as soon as we have the few preliminary, formalities. Before that, I would just like to tell all the participants, Ms. Gauri Rao has said that she would want this webinar to be an interactive one. So we would love to hear from all of you, but please do it in a systematic way and use the chat box, and kindly raise your hands, and then we will ask you to unmute yourselves and ask the questions. So kindly follow this protocol so that there won't be any cross talk, and we can all have a very healthy discussion. So having said about a few of these ground rules, now I'd like to hand over to Dr. Ratna, the president of Alumni Association, to give us the welcome address. Over to you, ma'am.
Good evening. A very good evening and a very warm welcome to you all to this international webinar on cross-country concerns on unhealthy eating options for children and the vulnerable, the travails and success. I offer my respect and gratitude to our donor, Srimati Vishan Devi Harbhagwan Das Danumal, and our founder principal, Dr. Sushila Lingaya, the two visionaries who thought ahead of their times to shape the destiny of young women to become responsible homemakers, entrepreneurs, scientists, and change agents. Home science education domain and its adaptability to challenges is well known. Globalization and changing times have, among others, set a new trend in food security. The availability of ready to eat foods raises a lot of safety issues for the society. The nutritionists and the community health workers face an uphill task in ensuring food and safety standards in the context of ready to eat fast foods. Our alumni, Ms. Gauri N. Rao, MS, ex-director of Community Nutrition Program, California, has worked extensively for the past few decades to bring about required safety standards with regard to unhealthy eating options. We appreciate Ms. Gauri N. Rao for readily agreeing to share her experiences, travails, and successes with us today, so that as home scientists, we study her strategies for implementation in our country. The office bearers of the Alumni Association of Srimati VHT Central Institute of Home Science join me in welcoming the Principal and Chief Patron of the Association, Dr. Rupa KS. We also extend a warm welcome to Ms. Gauri N. Rao, MS, Ex-Director of Community Nutrition Program, California. I feel privileged to welcome all our senior teachers, the founding members of the Alumni Association, senior members and other alumni members, colleagues, friends, participants from different countries. I must just make a special mention of Mr. Amar Narayan, retired IAS officer, who is with us today. Here I make a special appeal to all our alumni members to come forward and share their special abilities, skills and hobbies on the Alumni Association platform. We will host you on the webinar so that we can help the community as VHDNs. Once again, a very warm welcome to all of you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. I would now request Dr. Mari Kavita to introduce our guest for today, I mean the resource person for today.
ಗೌರಿ ನೋಡಿ ಬನ್ನಿ, ನೀವು ಕೇಳಿ.
Kavita, you have to unmute yourself. Please start from the beginning.
Good evening. I deem it a privilege to introduce our guest speaker, Ms. Gauri N. Rao. Ma'am's journey has been an incredible one. Ms. Gauri is our very own alumnus who completed her BSc from Srimati VHT Central Institute of Home Science in 1976. She decided to volunteer at a hospital to see if her interest in human nutrition and dietetics would be sustained. During the next 5 years, ma'am worked as a clinical dietitian, and she was also interested in medicine, but seeing the long hours her sister, a neonatologist, put in, decided to move on into her area of interest, that is public health and nutrition. Ms. Gauri moved to the US to continue her studies. After completing her master's, her MS in human nutrition and dietetics, she got a job in the public health department, dealing specifically with maternal, infant, and young child health and nutrition programs. She worked in the field in the front line with a population for 2.5 years and then moved into administration of programs. This path led her to serve the vulnerable sections of Los Angeles County, specifically those who were disenfranchised, poor mothers, babies, and children. Her career graph is extensive. Ex-Director of Community Nutrition Program, Maternal, Infant, and Young Child, Health and Nutrition, Health Promotion, both at the county and private nonprofit. She has worked with the United States Department of Agriculture extensively and with all the programs funded by this department. She has networked and collaborated with California Department of Public Health, Los Angeles and Orange County offices, farmers market, retail businesses, faith-based organizations, community-based organizations, and private entities in California state and with the California state and local governance. Building public-private partnerships with various universities, governments, and NGOs in the community, building sustainable community gardens. She has been the trainer of trainers and senior management of programs at the county and state levels. She is an advocate for menu labeling, and ma'am has testified at the California legislature hearing on nutrition and impact of burgeoning fast food places in the low-income neighborhoods. Menu labeling has now become a law in the state of California for some years now. We welcome you, ma'am, to our...
Thank you. Thank you, Kavita, for the introduction. without much ado, I would invite Ms. Gauri N. Rao to give us her presentation. And as I announced earlier, all of you are welcome to interact with her during her presentation. Just use the chat box so that we can have a proper discussion. Thank you so much. And over to you, ma'am.
Okay, let me see. I've got to start my PowerPoint. I need some help. Did I lose you guys?
No, ma'am. No, we are fine. Yeah, you're on.
You can see me, right?
Yes, yes.
Okay. So something happened.
Just go ahead, ma'am. You just start talking. No worries.
Okay. All right. So let me mention a little bit, very briefly, about my career. Although I did have a lot of experiences working with NGO and with the local governments, I got to see two sides of the coin, you know, how legislation, how government works, and how private entities work. So this kind of led me to look at what we were doing as projects. One of the projects that actually we got to work on when I was with the NGO was looking at the obesity issues and the rates of obesity we were seeing at our clinics throughout 60 of our local offices in Los Angeles County. And that was kind of an experience for us, but a coalition took birth out of all of these issues that were burgeoning in California. So as one of the agencies or the lead agencies, I got to chair that coalition. And with that, we ended up having to actually take a bill up to legislature. So let me tell you a little bit about what that meant. Because a bill has to go through several motions. And I think if there are any legislators or any people in here who have been familiar with how legislation works, it is a long process. It's an extremely long process. And I would just like to add that, you know, when Dr. Ratna mentioned travails and successes, the first shot that I got to take at this was a travail. It was a failure. And I didn't like saying that, and I don't like to accept it. Nobody likes to accept failure. However, what happened was it taught us a lesson. So in summary, really what happened was we were seeing a lot of children who at the age of 4 and 5 and, you know, were very overweight, and the parents had not a clue as to what was going on and why this was happening. So we had to go back and do some education with parents, you know, to help them understand, well, what is it that they're doing wrong or not doing? Maybe it's all, you know, right, but the child may be exposed to something else. So having done a lot of these studies and looked at some of the issues that surrounded these obesity issues or health issues, we asked American Heart Association to help sponsor a bill as a coalition. So we always needed a sponsorship, because without a sponsorship, you can't put a bill into motion. And it has to go up to the Senate, it has to go up to the House. And so at that point of time, one of the issues that came up was, well, what is it that you want to do? So we realized that there were so many fast food places. We call them fast food, but we had to change the terminology to call it convenience foods, because people didn't like the word. So one of the things that we did do is, you know, change the terminology, and we started calling it convenience foods. But the convenience food factor was so huge, we decided to call in McDonald's and have them come to our coalition and be at the table to talk to us and see how we could persuade them to work with us. And this was, I'm talking about in early 2000, almost 20 years ago. Okay, so American Heart Association decided that they were going to rope in a senator who one of the advocates knew very well. He brought in the senator who, in their legalese, was able to put together a bill And the bill basically said that there are a lot of families who are eating out more often. The children are accompanying these families who are eating outside. And what they're eating is unhealthy. I mean, there is no doubt that eating out so frequently has a direct relationship to poor health outcomes, to weight gain, to obesity-related issues. So we had to do, major work with the fast food places or the convenience places. And basically we said, what can you do for us? What can you work with us? How can you work with us? Well, the senator said, look, they won't do until we regulate something. So there was a language that was put in on the bill. And the bill was any restaurant that was serving food must label every menu item. Let's say there was a burger. They needed to mention how many calories it had, how many grams of fat was in that particular item, how much sodium was in it, and so on. So she took it up. She went to the Senate Health Committee, and it passed. So those of us, more fools, who thought, yay, we got it, we made it. Well, no, that was the first step. I must admit that when I testified at the Health Committee the first time, it was, it had to be scripted because this is the legislation you're talking to, legislature you're talking to rather. And what happened was there were a couple of people who were also going to be testifying. And without us knowing who these folks were, we found out because the Senate extensively kept probing and probing and probing as to some of these testifications as to what is it, who is sponsoring you? And we found out that although they call themselves the consumers interest group, they were being funded by Coca-Cola or by Nestle's. So, well, it passed the Senate Health Committee and then it went up to the House. Now, at that point of time, when we went up to the House, I had to testify again. And that testification basically just was completely demolished. They abstained from voting and they rejected the entire bill. So it didn't pass. And a lot of us who worked on these issues were in tears because we didn't know what went wrong. The issue that the House proposed was, oh, you cannot do this. It's going to hurt the companies. So remember, there's a profit here we are talking about. And you're not educating the public. So we said, okay, well, that's fine. We can rectify this. And having said that, we took it upon ourselves to start an entire process of educating families. At which point we realized that when you're poor, your choices are very few. When you're vulnerable, your choices are very few. And if you're an immigrant in a country like the United States, if you don't know the language, you are at a major loss because you really don't know where to turn for support. You don't have resources. So our best bet was to start educating parents. And I bring this up because when I read the snippet of the article that Dr. Ratna had sent on from FSSAI, I think I said that right, Food Standards and Food Safety and Standards Authority of India, correct? When I read that, I thought, oh my goodness, this is just barely happening here. This should have happened a long time ago. What we worked on, what we failed at 20 years ago is now being brought into India. And I'm here to see it, which, is just serendipitous, I would say. But what bothered me was that it took so long because, and let me go back to what we did. We had to keep advocating for that bill that had failed in the House. And we had a California public health advocacy group. So we took it to them and said, can you help us move this on? Sure enough, so they moved it and moved it and moved it. And 2 years later, it went back. It passed the Senate again. It went to the House. It passed there. And it went up to the governor's office for a signature and a stamp. Good old governor, many of you may have known or seen his movies, Arnold Schwarzenegger, put a seal of veto. So he vetoed the entire bill again. That was the second blow we had. And we did not again figure out, now what did we do wrong at this point? And we found out that he felt that businesses would not profit again. So we needed to say any restaurant chain having more than 20 in their chain must follow this law. So once again, the Senate got involved. Once again, another senator got involved. And finally, it passed a year later. So it was now 2007 when it passed. It became law. And so now the law states that you will, if you're a restaurant, you're a cafe, you're whatever, you will post on your menu all of these calories, the fats, the trans fats, the sugars added, the additives, etc., on the label. How is this different from what you see on packaged foods? Today in the US, these packaged foods have a lot more information. There has been a change again on the face of how it looks. But what happened in 1994 was a very basic minimum of what food labels were required. Just the food facts, just the nutrition facts. And you see, when I used to come to India, I wouldn't see any nutrition facts on any packaged foods. I call them packaged foods because I know many of you call them manufactured foods. Foods cannot be manufactured. Excuse me for saying that. Foods are grown. So nutrition is from agriculture, and the food that you eat comes from either livestock or from food that you grow. As simple as that. But manufactured foods are processed foods that directly take it from agriculture. And so we have an in-between here now. These processed foods had a lot of additives in it. And we realized that there were allergenics in it that were causing problems to children. So we went back to the table and said, now we have to redraw this. We have to educate the parents. We've got to teach them what to do. And so we had several, and I'll call them battlegrounds. Let me just be blunt. We had to call them battlegrounds because we were facing challenges in several fronts. One of them was schools. So what are schools doing? What were schools doing? Schools would
Ma'am, can you unmute yourself, please? Gauri ma'am, can you unmute yourself, please?
I did. Did I lose you somewhere? Okay, sorry about that. So on these fronts that we were trying to, do justice, we found that a lot of the parents who were, again, the vulnerable, and by vulnerable, I mean, we were looking or we were seeing patients who were, or clients who were antenatal, prenatal, postpartum, lactating mothers, infants, babies, and children up to 5-6 years of age. And then we saw the family who came in with them who had older children who were going to school. So that led us to believe that we had to educate these parents, not just for their infants and their children 6 and under or 5 and under, but even beyond, because they have school-going kids, they have preschool-going kids, pardon me for that. And we had to, no matter what, we had to make sure that they understood what they were dealing with in school. Now, in the US, they do have lunch programs and they have a free breakfast program as well for children. So one of the issues was, what are schools providing? Because this is a meal, these are breakfasts that the federal government pays for. So one of the issues was, how can we work with the government? How can we say, well, you're subsidizing all these foods, you're promoting all these foods, but can you adhere to certain healthy foods? Well, they would say, yes, these are our regulations, but the schools are not following it. So the schools had to go through an education process. And that brought in food service, brought in parents, and parents had to learn to advocate. You see, we had to learn to advocate, and they had to learn to advocate from us. Now, having said that, it's a long process. It's not a 1 year, a 2 year, or a 3 year story. It takes years for parents to help their children form healthy habits. So, one of the things that I would look at is you as a member of society, an upstanding member of society, you as a parent, you as a student, you as an educator, you have a moral and an ethical obligation to your future, to your child, and to the children that you see. You have got to teach parents who may not know. So, what is an unhealthy food? I mean, I don't know what unhealthy foods are in India. I see street foods and I see all kinds of snacks. But really, what do you consider to be unhealthy foods? I mean, I'd like to get a few answers as feedback.
Yes, ma'am. That was a wonderful, way of sharing your journey through this nutrition advocacy, and especially you have shown us the way forward. To at least speak for ourselves, especially in terms of finding good ways of promoting nutrition amongst our community.
Mhm.
And I think from my side, I would ask a question. Um, uh, Especially in India, we have, like you said, you don't know what the unhealthy foods are. As you know, we have a very rich tradition of great food diversity and a lot of cuisines which are very, very healthy. Of late, we have seen that many of the youngsters
Mhm.
and children, especially, have taken on to eat what we call as junk foods. Say it could be a packaged Crispies or something like that. They start the day with that.
Uh-huh.
So my concern is, I think the unhealthy foods fill up their stomach and they actually don't eat any nutritious food.
Mhm.
And that's a huge concern for parents, educators, because as I think all of us have understood by now, the importance of building an immunity, a strong immunity in youngsters, that really takes a beating with such a habit. What is your take on that, ma'am?
You know,
Hello, Madhu, can I intervene?
Yeah, sure, sure.
Yeah. Gauri, it's nice to hear you.
Namaskar.
I'm very happy that you have worked on the bill and passing it in the Senate at the highest possible level. But I don't know if I'm right. I did see in McDonald's in US where they used to say we are following Atkins diet. You know what I mean? Atkins
Yes.
diet.
Yes.
And then you see now Atkins diet is so popular in India about keto diets, and also similar many diets for who want to reduce uh, their weight. Obesity is also catching up here.
Mhm.
So I feel this is what, but how do you think? I was so amazed in one of the McDonald's. I saw this. I said I was really wonderstruck. What is happening now? You say they have to mention the calories and then all the nutrients that their food provides. But
Correct.
this was sometime maybe 2011
Uh-huh.
or earlier. But has it changed now? But in the same way, we always imitate American foods, and so McDonald's is catching up, KFC is catching up, and we have a lot of these foods which the youngsters feel is very highly nutritious. So you find that it is, and eating out in India has become a regular thing. Now it has changed because of the lockdown. The home food has come in forefront. So I wanted to know whether it has changed in McDonald's, and also it is an interchange from your talk that government wants to support some of the industries which give them revenue, like you said, Coca-Cola. So they don't want to have any such termination of such their business, and they depend on that. So this is my observation. You have anything to comment?
Yes, Mrs. Mane, yes, I do actually, because I don't want to make this a political issue, but I will tell you, I don't believe that McDonald's would promote Atkins diet unless it's been on the side. It is not something that, if the franchise decides, because McDonald's does franchises. In the United States, when we had these laws that became, rather these bills that became laws, we were one of the very first ones in California who actually had this law. And then New York came about with its laws. So slowly the states started doing it. And then the USDA, the United States Department of Agriculture, realized they needed to work on this and get this full scale out into the nation. So when that became law, everybody had to do it.
Yeah.
Now, McDonald's
So
done
it
it
has
before.
changed, as you say.
That has been going on since 2000, I would say maybe 10, 11, because we passed it in California in 2007. That was like really the law, the first law. And that, and I don't want to say just McDonald's. I think everybody is guilty to a certain extent when they are looking at their profit margins rather than actually having a conversation at the table as to what could they do. I'll give you an example that, vending machines in schools were a profitable business for schools. And I was going to talk to it because a lot of times the profit that comes from these vending machines where they are drinking sodas, and I will just lump sodas together because they're all sweetened beverages with high fructose corn syrup, which has been known to cause issues, metabolic issues many times in children and adults. And so what has happened is, the schools are partly responsible. So we had to go to that schools. You can't be speaking from both sides of your mouth. You can't take the profit and you can't take care of the health of your children. So you've got to do something. Oh, well, then what are we going to do? Well, provide healthy beverages. There is 100% fruit juice. We don't recommend juice as a registered dietitian, board certified with the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics, US. I would not recommend juice because juice per se can be very calorically dense. And, it takes 8 oranges or 8 santris or what have you to make a cup of juice. Would you eat that many at a time? No. Would you drink 3 cups of juice per day? Maybe. So in that respect, I think there are a lot more calories being consumed. Now, when you said Atkins diet, Atkins it's a whole different, fitness, weight loss programs. We don't get into it because we don't want to talk about weight loss in that manner. We are looking at pediatric population. And if our pediatric population is going to start gaining weight and show up with diabetes type 2, which has happened, which has been happening, and that's why we were concerned, it behoves us as educators, as nutritionists, as dietitians, as health professionals, to be making recommendations and to be saying, no, we can't do this. You eat a fruit, you're better off. Don't have vending machines with sodas. And so that was one. The other part of it, which Mrs. Mane, just one sec, I will give you the mic back. One of the things that has happened is when they have sports and games that have been happening for schools, children go to play sports. They need to play. Activity is very critical, okay? Because that's how they learn. But at these games, what do the parents take? They took donuts, they took sodas, they took candies. I mean, you name it. All the junk food was out there. And after the game, if they won or lost, it didn't matter. They went to Pizza Hut or they went to someplace else where they could find these fast food, convenience foods. Now, you know fully well that all of these pizzas and so on and so forth, do they really do it with good ingredients? I don't think so. They're adding trans fat in it. Now that's been banned in the US. Yes, there is some level of trans fat that, will happen, will, be there, but that's a small amount compared to what they were doing, what they were adding in there. So these are all issues that have come to the forefront, and we've been struggling with this for a while. But I have to tell you that there is also some good news in this, where we've seen a drop in obesity rates in children, specifically when they've gone through the process of the education that some of these groups have been providing, some of these programs have been providing. However, I think more than 75% of Americans, both adult and pediatric population, are obese. And that is a very sad question, a sad state of affairs. Mike, to you, over Mrs. Manning.
Yeah, I know it. Even the Atkins Institute got now, I think it's no more there. The whole junk, information that was going around and falsifying the truth of the, about the diet.
Yeah.
And anyway, while I was there itself, I found the institution built by this man got crashed. So I wanted to know, because I was surprised to see that in a McDonald's restaurant recommending that. So if it has changed, it's good.
Right. I don't believe the Atkins diet would ever be promoted by any of these giants. Manufacturing.
I know, but I was surprised, shocked to see that. So that's why I'm asking.
Franchise, it's possible that the owner of the franchise actually took it upon himself to go ahead and promote it.
It could be. I was really shocked. Okay,
Right.
okay.
So now I'm going to move on into the advertising, because that's where this comes into play. When you are talking about, promoting healthy foods and educating children, educating families, educating parents, everybody in society, because you know what, it takes a village to rear a child up healthy and normal. And I want to speak to a little bit about the advertising and the marketing that happens. Okay, just for numbers, Nestle's, and I'm not picking only on Nestle's, there are a whole host of others, okay? Kellogg's and anybody else, you name it. They will spend millions and billions of dollars per year in the United States on advertising and marketing. So what happens is there are advertisements on television, advertisements on radio stations. So when the children are going from daycare, where the parent is dropping off the child into some other organization, they listen to the advertisements. And what happens is then they stop on the way. The parent has to stop on the way because the child is hungry. They buy, let's say they buy something, and it's called a Happy Meal. So when you get a Happy Meal, you get a toy. And this toy is the catch right there and then. Now, having said this is called the nag factor. Okay. The nag factor is difficult to overcome for you as a parent. Am I right? How many parents go grocery shopping? You stop at the store, you're looking for something that you want, and what does your child do? Throw a tantrum? Or your grandchild is picking up stuff that has a little doll or some motor car or something that makes a noise. This is the nag, because that child, until you buy it, is going to continue to force you to buy those foods. They're unhealthy items. You know it. How are you going to stop it? So you have a responsibility. These advertisements, it's freedom of speech. We all know it's the largest democracy with 1.3 billion people, but there's freedom of speech. Thank God for that. And I would say that I don't think you can stop the marketing and the advertising. But what you can do is you can shut it off for your child, so that at that age, they don't need to be exposed to it. Yes, there are laws and regulations and so on and so forth, but everything the government should not be regulating to a certain extent, because you need to have a responsibility where the parent has to make a choice. Now, I think earlier on, when I was looking for lists of what would be considered Indian junk food, I didn't find too much. I mean, honestly. But then, when I look at all these deep fried, double fried vada pav, And you know what? Don't get me wrong. I mean, if somebody gave me a vada pav, I might eat it too. You know, what the heck? Doesn't matter. It's tasty, right? But if you're doing it every day, if you're giving your child those kinds of foods, it is going to add to a poor health outcome. And these are some of the issues that I would raise with parents. I think when you start young, in elementary school, in preschool, and in the first grade, the second grade, when children start learning about nutrition, it makes a huge difference because they go home and they teach their parents. And we've seen it happen over and over again, where the child will say, Mama, no, I'm not supposed to eat that. Because you said so, the teacher said so. So I think we have to educate, we've got to spread the word, we've got to move it out. You as advocates, you've got to go around and you've got to take this message that health is important. Health, if it's not good, if your child is unhealthy, it hits your pocket. Getting health care, trying to take care of health issues in any country today, more specifically in India and as well in the US, is extremely expensive on your pockets. Am I right?
Yes.
That's a very passionate way of telling us about how to, go about educating our young children. And we would really love to hear how you went about educating the parents as well as schools. But before that, we have a few questions. Can we take that, ma'am?
Yes, sir.
Simral Chowdhury asks whether the street foods like chaats, do they come under junk food?
And I'm going to throw that question back to Simral and ask her. Do you really think it's junk food? I mean, you have got to assess it. When does it become junk food? We have stayed away from the term junk again. You know, we are so politically correct in every response, every way in the United States that it drives some of us crazy. But here is the issue. We don't want to call it junk food. We want to call it sometimes food. Does that make sense? Which means that, hey, occasionally it's okay to have it. So if it's a street food that is fried and you're making your child have it every day because that's what your child wants, is that good or is that bad? You be the choice. You make the choice. And so you as a parent, you've got to decide. I personally would say it may be termed junk food if it's happening every day.
I think we all agree with that because all of us enjoy a vada pav or a pani puri or something once in a while, but it shouldn't become the everyday food. Yeah, the sometime food makes a lot of sense. There's one more question, ma'am. Okay, this one is about why doesn't FSSAI not provide any nutritional facts, and can we tell the organization to do something about it? So somebody has asked this. I do not know the name. So anyway, what do you think of that?
I will tell you that you, the people, you make the decisions. You are voting, aren't you? So if you're the voting public, you have a right to tell government what you would like to see. So it has to be, again, advocacy. You've got to educate your legislators. You've got to educate your corporators. You've got to educate your politicians, whoever it is that's making those decisions. If you've got somebody who has your ear, because you know what? They also have children and it hits them too when their child is not well. So I think when you bring this up and say, why don't junk food? When you say junk food, if it's processed food that's being sold, I think India mandates that it has some labels. Am I correct? Because I don't know that law here. But for us, that law is very important. We base it on what the manufacturer is doing. And if there is something that is hidden, it has got to be a small percentage. It has to be under 0.1%, at which point we say, okay, it's okay. If it's under 1 gram, it's all right. But it's not all right when they don't label it at all and they've thrown it in. So I'll give you some example which has to do with additives and colorings, food colorings, which have caused allergic responses and I would say deleterious health issues. Now that had been taken up and I think it is still somewhere in the workings of a legislation, but I don't know. I know that the doctors are against all of these additives because they are causing allergies. They're causing a lot of problems. They're causing a lot of mental health issues with the IQs and some of the other concerns, in some cases seizures. So correct me if I'm wrong, but There are some instances which have been also proven that some of these red and yellow colorings have been extremely deleterious. So I would say that if you see junk foods that are being sold, if they are being sold on the street in open, I would not buy it, just because you don't know what goes into it. It may have dalda. Dalda is pure hydrogenated fat. You don't want it. Okay. Ask your bakeries. There are a lot of local bakeries who are not using what they say they are using. They're using dalda. Okay. The very well-known ones too. I mean, from our times when I was growing up, we used to come on a vacation to Bangalore and we would look for these wonderful Bende biscuits. They were made with butter. Well, when I went back to ask, they said, taste them. I said, no. I said, tell me what's in it. And they said, Madam, ee kaldali yaru benne haktare. So I said, what do you put in it? He said, dalda. Okay, thank you very much. And I did a about turn and walked out. So it's your responsibility. You're a voter, vote with your feet, vote there and ask them what they can do to help you label every manufactured food product that's out in the stores, because there's a profit margin to them. But you have a right to ask for it.
Yeah,
so I would suggest that, you need to go back to the table with that.
Good answer, because many parents don't know what goes into the bakery items. And I think the next question which has been asked is by Dr. Sri Lakshmi. She asks about how can we educate children, parents, and also the school authorities to make college and school canteen food very healthy. And also she says, due to convenience, many parents buy a lot of bakery items, and also influence of media and others things. So how do we advocate healthy eating habits? One more person has also asked about how to create healthy eating habits in young children. So if you can throw light on these topics, ma'am.
Sure. As somebody who's,
Yashwant,
we really need to look at how young can we start talking to our children? How young can we teach them good health? See, what you follow at home, children take with them, correct? And so those habits are formed early in life. I would suggest that parents and anybody else, who has an interest in how their child and how their families are doing, they really need to talk to the school authorities and get their buy-in, find out what's going on. You have a parent teacher conference happening. You need to bring that up as one of your agenda items to say, can we talk about this? It's not necessarily something where you have to go in and bulldoze. You got to bring it up gently. You got to keep broaching the subject over and over again until it gets addressed. So now there is this whole thing about your schools, where schools will not be able to, have canteens that provide unhealthy snacks, right? Junk foods, as they say. Let me tell you just a little bit, the environment around the schools in the US, I'm not talking about private schools. I'm talking about pure government, publicly funded schools. These schools are in poor neighborhoods many times. There may be one or two in a wealthy neighborhood. And those schools in the wealthy neighborhoods do very well, okay? They don't get the same exposure with marketing and the advertisement and the street vendors out there with junk foods and everything else. Whereas if you go to the poor neighborhoods, that's what you see. And herein lies the difference, because when you go and assess for health conditions and you're looking at data, you will always see that the vulnerable, the low income, the poor families are the ones who suffer the most with the unhealthy conditions that are surrounding them. So in the US in 2016, July is when this very same condition that FSSAI has applied today, as of, a couple of days ago, to schools. They did that in 2016. We had been working with parents. We had been working with schools. Schools were working with us. They were trying to grow community gardens so that children learned how to grow foods. Foods are grown. Foods are not manufactured. Excuse me. I will say this over and over again, because I think everybody needs to understand that agriculture and nutrition are married for life. You don't have a choice. You can't divorce it. If you divorce it, you've got the junk food, you've got the manufacturer, you've got processed foods. So having said that, my passionate plea is you work on educating schools, the teachers, the superintendents of schools, and you look around the environment. You have an obligation. You have to look at the neighborhood. If you see something wrong, complain to whoever it is. Go to the owner, educate the owner. Is it so difficult to do that? Maybe not. But just tell him, hey, you know what? My child is doing this. How about putting out something else? You know, when we said fast foods, the first thing that came out of parents' mouths were burgers, French fries, and anything to drink that was quick and fast. And we said, well, what if we offered you something that was fast? And we showed them what we meant. An orange, a banana, a carrot. Is it fast? Do you think it's fast? You bet it is fast. Is it healthy? You bet it is healthy. So I think it's all in how you promote. Look, there are billions of dollars being put in by the marketers, okay, in advertising. All the chips, pardon the pun, all the chips are against us as advocates for health, for children, okay, because they have the dollars, we don't. Do we ever have money to promote health and nutrition? No, we don't. We are poor, correct? Am I wrong? We are poor. As a profession, nutrition, as a health condition, nutrition does not play a role in profit making. It makes profit when it gets manufactured. And therein lies our problem. So for us, the solution is just looking at the other side of the coin and saying, you know what? I don't think so. I don't think I need to encourage marketeers. When they lose out the battle in the United States, it comes into the Asian continent. It happened with tobacco. It's happening with food again now. So in 2016, when the USDA put out this same law around schools, you know, we had already worked on it from 2000 and I would say 1 and 2. I mean, look how long it took them to put it out. But you don't need to do that. In India, we don't need to do this. We need to learn from the mistakes of the other places, of the other countries and what they are suffering. We are suffering in the United States. Obesity is at an all-time high.
Hello.
You have the ammunition to do it. Other questions? Somebody asks a question about healthy foods and food is tasty as well. Well, I think you can make food tasty. I'm sure most of you know what makes food healthy. It doesn't need to be, and tasty. It doesn't necessarily need to be, unhealthy food that tastes good. Yes, you know, all fat is not bad. You need to add a little bit for palatability and for satiety. But beyond that, I mean, if it's an everyday, food habit that is unhealthy, I would probably suggest, look at other things. You can always make food tasty. If you don't want to add extra salt, what do? You could add lemon juice. Would that work? Maybe. So I really like to hear from, a lot of you folks who are probably, very skilled at culinary arts, and you have a lot more to offer. I'm just one little bit and one small voice. There's one other question here. In our college canteen, fast food is totally banned. No one can buy or sell these foods. They cannot bring it to college from outside. One day is allotted for students to eat fast foods, only on Fridays. Hoo-hoo, isn't that a fun thing to do? But, which is, I think I would give them more power, because I'm so glad that some colleges doing that. How many colleges would do something like this? I'm going to actually leave you with a thought. I want you to think about, do read the Farm Bill. I'm sure most of you have done it. This is not a political game. I'm not playing politics. I am just being very, very neutral, but I think you need to look at the Farm Bill. You need to get aware. You need to be the advocate and the voice of reason for good health. You are the folks who are out there, with the children and your society, and that is your future. That is my future too. Because when I see a child, I think, oh, this child is going to be a lawyer someday, or this child is going to be a politician someday. And I want that child to make the right decisions for me if I survive. But that's for all of us. So as adults, as parents, as grandparents, educators, as members of society, I think we have an obligation. And with that, I would like to say thank you for giving me this opportunity to express my experiences and address some of the issues that I think are key for the health of our children and our future. I will hand it back over to
One last comment, Gauri, I would like to add. See, like we saw, our children came home with Maggi noodles and back from school. This was promoted by the school and the media also. We had well-known faces advertising for it. This was about 15 years back. And fast foods are cheaper compared to nutritious foods. And
Absolutely.
easy to prepare.
Yes,
So
absolutely.
that we were caught in the trap.
Yes, yes, it is. It's a parental trap. It's a parent trap, as they call it. But unfortunately, I think that is where we have to pick our battles. We are going to say packaged foods, no. You know, there was one thing, there was one gentleman who was on our committee, on a collaborative, when we first started the menu labeling. And he was Mr. Universe. He actually was Mr. Universe, Mr. World, something, because he showed me what he had. And he was from Switzerland. So he said, you know, this is what I promote. I tell everybody it's got to be a 1 ingredient label. I said, my God, how brilliant can that be? Isn't it true? I mean, if it says wheat, it needs to be only wheat, nothing else. What does that mean? You can't process it. Done. So I think he was trying to promote something that was natural, but people weren't getting it. Now, he was a celebrity and he was ready to promote it, but would the manufacturers, other manufacturers allow it? That's why I said there's no money in nutrition. There's a lot of money in processed foods. And so we have a big battle on our hands, but it doesn't have to be a battle. It needs to be an education. If you learn to negotiate and keep your children away from the processed foods, you know, it'll be fine. I'm not saying don't buy it. Buy it very, very occasionally. And you know what? Once they become teens, they're going to pretty much do what they feel like doing. But that doesn't mean that they're going to go all out and buy everything else, right? Because they're already habituated to eating right, because you made that happen for them. So my earnest plea is look at what your child is eating, please. Now, if you don't like the healthy foods, then there is a problem because your child emulates you. So I would suggest as a family, eat as a family. I mean, this was something that we promoted very, very strongly. We taught parents. We had to do basic skills, cooking skills for parents. We had to show them what they could do. We gave them recipes. We gave schools recipes. So, I mean, these are all things that you can do. You know, if you're out there promoting nutrition, I think you need to do that.
Madam?
Yes, sir.
I have a suggestion. No, it's not a question. We have been doing a project on nutrition as per the United Nations Special Development Goals. In fact, Madam Ratna also is one of our partners in this program. Okay. Just to divert the attention of the rural children from the junk foods, we have been advocating eating habit of fruits. We are asking the children to eat more fruits so that they need not go in for junk food. As a practical measure, we have taken up planting of fruit trees in the vast chunks of land which are available and which were not used at all. I think Madam Ratna also is a great sponsor and a contributor for this cause. We have planted something like 200 to 300 plants in each residential school. They constitute fruits which can be plucked directly and eaten by the students.
Excellent.
So this is giving a very good fillip to the children. And now this is not only one aspect of food. The other aspect is the relationship with the mother nature. Absolutely. How the young child will eat the fruit and understand the tree and understand the benefits of the fruits and understand the benefits of the nature. So the junk foods are basically they are eaten more in the cities. I'm talking about the rural India. 70% of the rural India doesn't have junk food. It may be there, but it is very less in percentage. Now we have as a special attention we are paying a special attention to the rural schools. We are trying to develop fruit gardens in every school and kitchen gardens in every school so that they can get curry leaves, mint, lemon, then there's some drumstick or we call like other nutrition food like chakramani, agase and all that, so that they are self-sufficient in getting the nutritional levels. I am very grateful to you. You gave us a very educative and informative talk on the nutrition levels. Now, this audience, for this audience, I have a suggestion. In almost all the government schools, there is place available for planting. Let us plant fruit plants and make a kitchen garden so that their attention is more towards the nature and natural food than the junk foods. Thank you.
And that is a fabulous, fabulous suggestion, because without this, children don't learn. We've had preschools, and when I say preschools, they are from 2.5 years old to up to about 4 or 5 before they get into kindergarten. They have state run, which is state sponsored, federal dollars, state dollars money, where we initiated community gardens or school gardens where children could learn to grow. And you've done and succeeded in what we've been trying to do. However, sometimes there is no political will. So, you've done what is amazing, because I think if everybody took that on, and every school, every college, every city, even urban areas, had a fruit garden and a vegetable garden, I think it would be just a healthier community and a society that does not need to be close to a hospital because we might get sick. You see?
Yeah.
I mean,
I am ready to share my ideas and the projects with the viewers, with the participants. If anybody is interested to develop a garden or a kitchen garden or a fruit garden in any school, we have a lot of projects running. I am the president of the Organization for Industrial, Social and Cultural Advancement International. It's a Japanese organization which is doing a lot of philanthropic work. I am the president of the Bangalore chapter, and Madam Ratna also is with us. And we did a very nice program in one of the residential schools. She donated 100 plants for that school. I must go on record. And they're all fruit plants, which will definitely enhance the nutritional level of the children. And they can, in their leisure time, they can go and pluck the fruits and eat directly without being processed. So I appeal to the participants, if anybody is interested, please come forward and let us join to make this as a regular project in every school in every part of the state or in every part of the country. I am there to give all the kinds of inputs as well as the project profiles and all that. I am ready to serve the Mother Nature in this way and help our children to have a healthy food and healthy life in this country. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that open offer, sir, because I think many of us would like to really work on that offer, and we are really grateful to you. Ma'am, may I remind you about the time now? I think if there are no more questions.
I think we should welcome Mr. Amarnaran sir's idea. We should start green finger clubs to begin with at the grassroots level, where the children are exposed to the fruits and vegetables.
yes,
Thank you, sir.
they grow
Very good.
that determines health. So he's absolutely right. That is our basic principle in teaching our children. So I am so happy that he came out with this, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to even express myself. And I just 1 minute of it, I wanted to say thank you to all my teachers, my lecturers from VHD, who actually helped and mentored me. And you know what? 30 years later, 40 years later, here I am. So I just wanted to say thank you and a namaskar for everything that you've done for my success.
I think we've had a very thought-provoking webinar, ma'am, because you really spoke through your heart, because we could it was so palpable, your passion for promoting this particular cause. And I'm sure many of our young students would have imbibed some of your leadership qualities through this webinar. And I now request Dr. Sri Lakshmi R, who's our treasurer and also an associate professor in the Department of Extension Education and Communication of our college, to render the vote of thanks. Over to you, Sri Lakshmi.
Please unmute.
Yeah, please unmute Sri Lakshmi.
Yeah.
Are you there, Sri Lakshmi?
I'm there. Good evening, everyone. It is my pleasant duty to propose a formal vote of thanks for today's international webinar on cross-country concerns on unhealthy eating options for children and vulnerable travails and successes. At the outset, let me express my heartfelt salutations to our donor, late Srimati Vishndevi Harbhagwan Das Danamal, and our founder, principal, late Dr. Sushila Lingaya, for their foresightedness and visionary thinking about girls' empowerment through education. On behalf of Alumni Association of Srimati Vibhakshi Central Institute of Home Science, I take this opportunity to thank wholeheartedly Ms. Gauri N. Rao for giving an inspirational talk on cross-country concerns on unhealthy eating options for children and vulnerable travels and success. It was indeed a very interactive, informative, and enlightening session, madam. And you had highlighted the challenges in the global and Indian scenario. Thank you, madam. I would like to thank our respected principal, Dr. K.S. Rupa, for her support and cooperation in all our endeavors. My special thanks to Dr. Ratna H., President of Alumni Association of Srimati VHP Central Institute of Home Science, for her enthusiastic support and valuable guidance. My heartfelt thanks to Dr. Mari Kavita, EC member of our Alumni Association of Srimati VHP Central Institute of Home Science, for introducing today's eminent speaker, Mrs. Gauri. And I'm extremely thankful to Dr. Madhumati S., Vice President of Alumni Association of VHP Central Institute of Home Science, for moderating today's international webinar. I thank Ms. Suvarna, Secretary of Alumni Association of our college, Srimati VHP Central Institute of Home Science, for coordinating the program and extending technical support for today's webinar. We are extremely thankful to all our esteemed alumni members, retired teachers, especially Dr. Shakuntala Mane Madam, all our staff members, friends, and my dear students for participating and gracing the webinar. And my special thanks to Mr. Amar Narayan Reddy sir, IAS retired, at present he is a member of the Planning Commission, for actively participating, assisting us to do the nutrition, to plant the nutrition garden and fruit gardens at schools and colleges. Thank you very much, sir. I must mention the deep sense of appreciation and gratitude to all the executive members of Srimati VHP Central Institute of Home Science for their support and cooperation. I once again thank you one and all. Be safe and be healthy. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sri Lakshmi. And with Dr. Ratna ma'am's permission, I would like to close this meeting. I thank Ms. Gauri Rao again for this wonderful, thought-provoking webinar. Thank you, ma'am.